It's just a good year to be a senior, so you don't have to make them all up. More.
All right, I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Gladwin Community Schools Board of Education to order. Mr. Secretary, will you take the roll?
Lisa Schwager.
Here.
Brad Withrow, here. Linda Winarski.
Here.
Eric Dion.
Here.
Kelly Gower.
Here.
Trevor Gravel. Here. Sally Hightower.
Here. I have established a quorum. Would you now please and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll now entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. I'll second.
All right, Trevor has moved that we approve the agenda as presented. Eric has seconded. Any discussion? Any additions or corrections on the agenda? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying nay. All right, motion passes. Next is the approval of the minutes of the previous minutes. This is the draft minutes from the organizational meeting of January 14th, the regular meeting of January 14th, the executive minutes of January 14th, and the workshop minutes of January 28th. I'll entertain a motion for those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
All right, Kelly has moved that we accept the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Lisa seconds. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes. We will accept the district school improvement minutes of September 26th, and we will file those. Madam Treasurer, would you present the bills? Our committee met, and there were no questions on the bills. Everything's pretty self-explanatory. So I move that we approve the current bills of $133,277.27 and the prepaid bills of $1,305,842.63. All right, Linda has presented the bills and the current bills and the prepaid bills and move for approval of the bills. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Trevor seconds. Any further discussion? Kelly, do you have discussion?
No.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying nay. All right, motion passes. Mr. Seebeck, communication.
Real quick, before we get started with the rest of the meeting, I just want everybody to know Tab Faber in the back there. Tab's going to videotape our board meeting this evening, and he's part of the Gladwin County Viewing Room project. They're working to videotape various countywide meetings, boards of commissioners, boards of education, things like that, and make those available on their website. So make sure you're all smiling at the camera, and maybe you get to see yourself there. So this Tab Faber, I just wanted to introduce you, Tab.
Hello.
All right, are there any presentations to the board? All right, from the public, on the agenda is Mr. Joel Rhodes.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm here to address some things that happened a few months ago. Just a report of who you expelled from your school. Which some of you know me, some of you don't. My son Billy was 29th out of 118 students. He got caught up in a picture issue, and you voted to expel him. I'd like to request that you reverse that expulsion, although I don't think that'll happen. In according to Mr. Seebeck, it can't happen. From talking to my counsel, it can happen if I go to circuit court over it, you know, which I don't really wanna do that, but we're filling out college applications and it asks, have you ever been expelled? We have issues with that. We think it was very unfair that it happened, the way it happened. We've got, you know, I've got a short agenda that I wanna, you know, ask questions, I guess, and give you an opportunity to answer, but there's things that the public, I think, a public outcry is like, some of the stuff shouldn't happen, you know? Kids make mistakes in high school. Kids make mistakes in grade school. It was just on the news here a few months ago, not even that, maybe a month ago. Some kids in a middle school, 4 kids, 3 boys, 1 girl, got caught up in some sexting. Sexting is an enormous number of kids sexting these days. It happens. But to take my son out of a school that he went to for 13 years, was an outstanding student, every teacher that you can come by except for one that was involved with being the parent of the girl, it happens. For him to be thrown out of that school, I think was so unfair. And there's so many teachers we've talked to, so many people outside of the school we've talked to, that feel it's unfair too. We don't know what to do about it. He's not coming back here. He's made a home. One of the papers that I gave you, this is a report card from the Houghton Lake School. He's doing very well up there. He's doing A's and B's just like he did here. In the face of adversity, I think my son is better than any of us because he has dealt with this, he's moved on with it, and he's like, life isn't fair all the time, but it's not going to stop me. So he's doing well, and the proof in that report card shows that. I could get you, letters from teachers if you'd like, whatever you'd like. But to have an expulsion on his report card, or on his school record, is absurd to me. The issues, and I talked to Mr. Seebeck about, the National Honor Society. The young lady's still in the National Honor Society. We don't understand that. He seemed to agree with me when we had the conversation that, no, he feels that it's unfair that she's still on the National Honor Society, doing things that she sent the picture to Billy. Mrs. Sodolak, when you guys all had a piece of paper, a disciplinary report from her when we had the hearing for my son, it said on that paper that Billy Rhodes was found to have a picture on his phone. When I went to her to get that disciplinary report, did I take that to a different school to try to get him in? That paper sounded so filthy and dirty to me when I read it, the way it was written. When we had a meeting, it was written that way, and I hadn't really read it. It sounded like he was looking through a keyhole and took a picture of somebody. And it wasn't that way at all. The picture was sent to him by the young lady. So I think that just totally changes the picture to me and most of the people we've talked to when we shared the whole picture, not just a segment of it.
So
Not the picture as in picture, but the whole, the whole issue. Yes,
one
sir.
of the things that I want to make sure that we do is, when you address the board and explain what's going on, is talking about the other student and their involvement in that activity is not appropriate for an open session of the board.
Try not.
So you've got to make sure that you keep your comments directed to
Okay.
your son and his involvement and leave the other students out of it. If
I'll
you
do
want
that.
the board to consider that information, give it to them in writing
I'll-
and they'll consider it.
No.
But it's not appropriate for an open session to talk about somebody else.
I'll do that, and I apologize.
That's all right, I just wanted to make you aware of it.
Moving on to, I can't say more about that. That's what it is what it is. If you can make a decision off of some of those things I'm gonna give you to work with, I hope that you can seed in your hearts to reverse the expulsion. He will not be coming back to your school, but I do want him to function as a high school student, at any high school student. I want him to come back down here for basketball. I want him, or not basketball, but for track. I want him to walk around that track field with head held high and play for his team that he's playing for now. The basketball issues here, look, it was a little extreme, but, the things I don't understand is we go to government class. We teach all our kids freedom of expression, freedom of speech. But when some of the kids from up there come here and want to express themselves, because they love my son, just like these people here did, and still do, they're not allowed to express themselves. Well, then they stop them at the door with some signs, blah, 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 And I don't know if anybody people know this, so you tell me if I'm going too far or out of line, just stop me and I'll stop. But some kids brought some signs down here and we're, saying we love Billy. They've stopped at the door with him. They can't bring him in. Okay, fine, they're not gonna fight about it. They're by the garbage can. Well, then some 11 kids come and they see these signs. Well, they love him too, so they put these signs up. Then they get threatened with expulsion, or with, not expulsion, but suspension.
Oh, I don't know, Mr. Zagata dealt
Yeah.
with that.
Threatened with suspension because they express themselves. I'm like, okay, what are we teaching them? And then we teach them, and we tell them, no, you really can't do that. So I'm confused with those issues. I'm trying to cover all my ground in a very short time, so if I, when you
You're
get
doing
done,
You're
if
doing
you can
fine.
look at it all and say, okay, you covered it all. Can't talk about that. The lack of educating our kids is a big issue with me. The sexting, I mean, it's a different world we live in, different than you grew up in, different than you grew up in. I mean, I'm like, holy crap, I just can't believe some of the stuff that's going on now. But if we don't educate our kids that they can get kicked out of high school for this. They can be an A student, they can be a valedictorian. They get caught sexting, you're out of here, Buster. You're done. If they don't know this information, how do they discipline themselves to not do it? I mean, it's millions, it's not just hundreds and thousands, it's millions of kids doing it.
So,
But unless we educate them,
yeah, I wanna step in for just a minute. In the whole situation, because I wasn't really aware of how frequent this happens in our schools. I'll tell you this without listing any names, but when the football team was asked basically about what happened, you know, I had several people from the team come to me and personally say, we didn't have anything from Billy on our phone. It wasn't about him. We didn't want to get caught with what was on our phone. And I asked those students, just to be honest, is this common? It's very common amongst our population, our student population. It's scary how common this is. And that's where I guess it's as parents, it's our responsibility, but it's also the schools. If we're not teaching them from the get-go that this is not okay, you know, I don't condone the action, but I also know there was no way for him to know when everybody else is doing it, when there's other students in the school that have gotten caught doing it but were not expelled. When that stuff is going on, how was he to know how severe it was? And yes, that is our fault as parents for maybe not making that clear, but we weren't aware at the time that that was going on. And a lot of it was peer pressure, the whole with the picture being shown. A lot of it was just plain peer pressure. It's not acceptable, but that's what it was. It was a bunch of boys and it was peer pressure. And when all the rest of them are showing similar things, and it's very common, I'm not saying it's right, just like TPing somebody's house is actually a crime, but because so many people do it, a lot of people overlook it and it's acceptable. And unfortunately, that's what happened in this situation. Because it was happening all the time, it was acceptable. And I don't agree with that, but we do need to fix that, whether it's in
we need to educate
the
them
school
somehow.
rules, maybe it needs to be in there. I don't think there's anything in there that tells the students that if they were to get caught with something like that, what happens. I didn't find it, you know, so we need to address those issues too, not just with Billy and what we're trying to do, but we want the students to be made aware of the seriousness of it and what could happen.
I'm not just here fighting for my son, I'm here fighting for everybody else's son and daughter that's down the line. It's gonna have these same issues happen, especially in the world of technology we live in. All this stuff is going on, and they can't be kicked out of a school that they've went to all of their life for this stuff. We haven't educated them in the first place. So that's what I'm passionate about. I'm like, we need to fix the problem. We can't fix what the kids do, because they're kids. They make mistakes. That's what we're for. But to just throw him out like he's trash, I'm like, wait a minute, this is not good. This is not healthy for anybody. And then to do what you're doing with the basketball game issues that happened last week, you're provoking the situation to me, you know? He should have been able to come down here and play with his team, no problem. But somebody called up there and asked them, please have Billy stay there, because so-and-so was playing here before the game.
No.
And whatever happened, but
No, they asked him not to go to the game in Houghton Lake because the girls were, which he was very respectful and didn't go.
right.
And that was just a consideration, which was fine. But but the game, they just didn't want, they said he couldn't play.
Anyways, what I'm here for is I want my son to be able to function as a high school student of Houghton Lake and come onto your property and do what he's supposed to do for his team and function just like anybody else would function. He's moved on, you don't want him here, you don't want him to go to school here, and that's fine, we can deal with that. He's already moved on, he's done well. In the face of adversity, I'd put him up against anybody. The policing, and this is for the board, policing of all people, either the National Honor Society or the administration, be Rick Seebeck, the principals and vice principals, you board members are here to police those actions. My passion that I'm trying to say to you is you're here to do that job. You've got to do that job. But, and what I've told my kids, if you keep making the same mistakes, or you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and you keep getting the same results, you've got to change it up. You've got to change something. And I'm going to tell you guys, in my eyes, that if you have the same people that suspend a child do your investigating, you're going to get the same results, for God's sakes. You should have somebody else do the investigating. To me, that just makes sense. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the same people do the investigation that did the first investigation, I don't believe you're going to get any different results. You know? Mistakes and correcting them. Billy made a mistake, and he's correcting his. I'm hoping that the board can see that they need to fix. I believe you made a mistake. You said yourself, Sally, that it was the hardest decision you've ever had to make in this board.
Very hard.
I'm crying out to you now that please reverse this decision. He's not coming back to your school, so that's not an issue. But I do want him to function as a high school student of a normal everything, because he is normal.
Joel, hold on for just a minute. One of the things I would like to address, as most of you know, I have another child that is
Yeah.
still attending
Good point.
Gladwin High School. And Kirk is in the band, you know, and he has a concert. He wants his brother to come and watch him. And he can't. You know, if I had an emergency and I had to, which they're in two different schools, it probably wouldn't happen. But right now, anything Kirk does, Bill can't go and watch. And this was their year, and this has been really hard for Kirk and for Billy because it was the first year they were in the same school together. They've talked about this for the last 2 or 3 years. You know, we get to high school, Billy's senior year, Kirk's freshman year. They rode to school in the morning. That was their brother bonding time, and it's gone. I can't replace that. We can never take that back. And like I said, that's beside the point, I guess. But it's very important to Kirk that Billy's there. I mean, how do you explain to a child with Down syndrome how any of this happens? You know, why his brother can't. I can't explain it to him. I haven't found a good way to do that. You know, and I would like him to be able to, like I said, go to the concert and, you know, support his brother. And not be a crime to be there, you know, for those kind of events.
You know, in the rule books, I don't know where the expulsion, I've looked in the handbooks to find out the guidelines under expulsion, I can't find anything. It's like you just make them up as you go, I don't know, you know, I don't know, I'm not saying that, but I'm
We
just.
have board policies on this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but there's nothing I can read or find that states, you know, that you can't come on the ground, you can't do this, you can't do that, and I've been told, you know, so we don't violate none of that stuff, you know. But we would like to have those expulsions lifted or whatever the next step is to doing that, without going public and going to circuit court. We want this to go away, but yet he's paid the price. He's done everything he's supposed to do. That's all I can tell you. He's done everything he's supposed to do. Like I said, that's it. That's for me. But the expulsion, I'd like to see it go away. Like I said, for us filling out applications for college now, it's like, you know, he's in the middle of the football playoffs, he's the captain of the football team, he's an AB student, he's 29th out of your 118 you had going to your school. Nothing about him said he was trouble.
Any kind of discipline action prior to that. Out of all the students that we send out of classrooms every day for various, Billy had nothing. Nothing. He had one detention, I believe, for a tardy his junior year. That was it for high school. There was no detentions. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I certainly wasn't aware of anything else. You know, and like I said, we're not asking that he come back into school. He's started this semester. He's had to take extra classes online in order to graduate on time because Houghton Lake has more credits required than Gladwin. And he's done it, you know, he's done what he needed to do, and he will graduate from Holton Lake. But we just, like I said, if it wasn't on his record, it would be easier for maybe him to get into a college, a good college that he'd like to go to. There's nothing else stopping him.
It's just hard with everything that's happened. And, you know, like you said, Rick, can't bring names or anything like that, but, there's definitely, some people on the out and some people on the in. And obviously Billy wasn't on the in, but there's some things that just weren't fair about this whole situation. And being who it was and whatnot, it wasn't, we can't say the end or not, that's fine, but you all know there's something that wasn't fair about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had such a hard decision to make. You know it wasn't, And like I said, correcting what's wrong, what you do, when you do something wrong, if you can correct it, you're a good person. Billy's correcting his, and that's all I can say, is hope that we all can see my side of what I'm saying. We didn't defend him very well, because we didn't know what the allegations were even when we heard the board meeting. We didn't know what the charges were. We didn't know what was going on. We just knew we gotta defend our son and find out what's happening here. And that's what our lawyer said, just sit there and
We said, don't say anything. So-
let's see what goes on.
So that's what we
You know?
did.
And now, prosecuting attorney said, no, we're not doing nothing. I'm like, thank you, But if there was something there, dang well, they'd be doing it. So, I guess that's all I got to say, but
Well, thank you for your comments.
please see what we're trying to say to you, that there's some work to be done.
So let me do this, because I'm
Yes, sir.
unsure of what the process moving forward has to be. If a parent comes to a school board meeting and requests that a previous expulsion be overturned, or if the conditions of the expulsion be modified in any way, I honestly don't know exactly what that process is. And to be fair to you, I think I need to find out exactly how it's supposed to work. So let me make some phone calls tomorrow morning and track down how to handle your concern and your request. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I'm taking away from this that your request is that the expulsion be overturned if possible, or if not, that the conditions of the expulsion prohibiting him from being on school property be modified so that he can be under maybe certain circumstances. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly right, but what I'm trying to say is that I want the expulsion lifted totally if I can.
Right.
Because I believe it was so unfair, and I believe a lot of the board members knows that, Like you're saying, you want to, if not lifted, the rules of it lifted, or changed,
Well, let me find out how that process works. I'm sure it's very complicated, probably more complicated than either of us know. So let me check it out and get some guidance on how it's supposed to work, and then I'll let the board know how it goes, and I'll also call you and let you know how the process has to work, and then we'll move forward from there.
Okay, it just didn't seem very complicated when you threw him out.
And it may not be, but
Happened pretty easy and fast,
No,
but
But
let me find out, and then I'll.
It shouldn't be that hard to fix it if you're gonna try to fix it, really. It shouldn't be that hard to fix it.
Well, we'll find out tomorrow, I'll give you a call.
Please do.
Yep.
Thank you for your time,
com-
everybody.
Thank you for your
Thank
comments.
you.
Are there any other communications from the public? All right, board members, have any communications? Miss Elena, you're up.
Let me just start out by saying that the only phone calls from the school students want come between 5:30 a.m. and 5:45 a.m. and they're from Mr. Sivek saying we don't have any school. So just let you know, all the students appreciate that.
I'm sure they do. I can bump that up to 5:15 if you like.
You know, whatever makes me turn my alarm off sooner. Let me start out by saying NHS has been selling hearts for hospice. All the money goes to hospice, and we hang the hearts up in our school library. We're also having a prom dress drive February 22nd from 5 to 8 p.m. to help people who can't afford prom dresses, and it's combined with Beaverton. It's going to take place at the Beaverton Community Center, but February 22nd is when the Gladwin girls bring in their clothes. We're going to have a pink out to help support breast cancer awareness February 26th at the boys basketball game. We have new shirts we designed, and we're going to sell them then. And our next blood drive for NHS is March 8th. So it's before our next meeting, so I just wanted to let you guys know, we're aiming for our 85 pints. We want your blood. Student council is throwing our winter formal named Snowball, and we're trying something new this year. We're gonna do a theme dance where everyone dresses up in 80s attire, so big hair, hairspray, and ruffled dresses. And voting in court will be taking place this month as well. The senior class is having our senior fiesta February 22nd during the Gladwin Beaverton games from 5 to 7:30 p.m. It's a Mexican dinner that the senior class makes, and it's $5 suggested donation, and at it we are trying something new this year. We're having a silent auction, and so I'm getting donations from kind businesses to auction off. And we're also raising money for our senior trip, which I see is later on the agenda. And also, the choir is holding auditions for The Sound of Music Thursday, February 14th and Friday, February 15th at the Gladwin High School Cafetorium. Their next concert is a pre-festival concert on March 3rd at 3 p.m. And Saturday, March 16th is when the Gladwin High School Choir will perform at Districts at 9 a.m. to 2:40 p.m. in Standish. So we wish them the best of luck.
I want you to know that the big hair was also in the 60s when I went to high school. I know. I am a child of the 60s. There's no doubt about it. Thank you very much.
I remember when I went to school,
Don't go
which
there.
was not the 60s, by the way.
No.
But when I went to school, we dressed up as if we were going to school in the 50s, and I remember thinking, boy, those people that went to school in the 50s were pretty old. Now you're dressing up in the clothes and hairstyle that I wore when I went to high school, so what's that say about me?
I don't know, but I found my mom's old Fila's in her closet. I know what I'm wearing.
Well, have fun with it. I did.
Okay, moving on from the 60s and the 80s. Next is the administrator reports. Do any of the board members have questions of the administrator? Do you have any further comments you'd like to make? Well, I'll speak at one time, it's okay. All right, thank you very much. Mr. Seebeck, we don't have any written committee reports.
We do not.
We do not have any information discussion items, I understand.
I have one information
One
item that came in,
information.
and I wanted to make everyone aware of it. I put a copy of it in front of you. It's this red, white, and blue colored one from the Michigan Association of School Boards. And one of the laws, and there were several that impacted education, but one of the laws that passed during the legislative lame duck session involved a change in how board members have to deal with conflict of interest. And we'll go over this in detail at our next workshop, but prior to that, I wanted you to have it in writing so you could read through it and see if any of the ways in which the laws have changed will impact you, and if they do, or you believe that they may, you can bring that up at the workshop and we can discuss it in more detail, but it's just some light reading for you to take a look at before we leave.
I need to get one of these.
Oh, I'll pass one down to you. In fact, you can take mine. So take a look at that and more to come at the next workshop, and that's all I have for information.
Alrighty. Action items, old business, no old business. All right, we'll move on to new business. First agenda item on new business is the policy, second reading of the online learning policy. Would you like to make any more comments on this?
You've had the policy for the first reading, and now we have in front of you the second reading on the same policy. There have been no changes between the two. And tonight, I would ask that you approve the policy as it is presented.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion on the online learning policy before we have a motion on this? All right, I'll entertain a motion on approval of the online learning policy and procedures as presented.
I'll make the motion to accept the online learning
All right,
policy.
Trevor moves that we accept the online learning policy and procedure as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Eric seconds. Being that there was no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed signify by saying nay. All right, motion passes. Next is the best practices resolution. Mr. Seebeck, would you like to address that?
I will. If you'll look at the attachment A that you have there, it lists the best practices that we have the opportunity to conform with. And if we would conform to 7 of 8 of those, we will qualify for the incentive dollars being offered by the state of Michigan. And just for information, the incentive payment is $52 per pupil. What we're looking at is the district being the designated policyholder for medical benefits. We are, so we conform to that one. The second one is the district has obtained a competitive bid on non-instructional services, and we have with our special education transportation services bid for 2012-2013. We do accept applications for enrollment by non-resident applicants under section 105 or 105C. The district does identify which of the following it provides, and if you look at that one, this is the one that we have just finished up, and that is submitting to the Department of Ed a plan that shows progress toward developing the technology infrastructure necessary for the implementation of a pupil growth assessment by 2014-2015. And that's where we have to use our benchmark assessment process that we do have in place now, but we have to administer those assessments through an online vehicle. And we are prepared to do that next year. The district does offer online instructional programs or blended learning opportunities to all eligible pupils. We just approved a policy tonight, the online learning policy that conforms to that best practice. And lastly, the district does provide a link on its homepage for the My Data website, which makes the data on student achievement available to anyone who chooses to click on it. So with those being in place, we will qualify for the best practices funding, and the resolution that you have before you will allow me to submit it to the state so that we can receive the payment.
All right.
I'll make the motion that we adopt the resolution for best practices so that we can become available for the money.
All right, it has been resolved that we approve the resolution as presented by Mr. Seebeck. Is there a second to the resolution? Second. All right, Kelly has moved that we approve the resolution as presented. Linda has seconded it. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, Mr. Secretary, would you call the roll of the roll call vote?
Lisa Schwager,
Yes.
Linda Winarski,
Yes.
Eric Dion,
Yes.
Kelly Gower, Trevor Gravel,
Yes.
Brad Withrow, yes, and Sally Hightower.
Yes. All right, the resolution passes unanimously, and we will take our $52 from the state per pupil, if it still is there when we go for it. I understand the state's gonna give us $34 more a kid in base.
Well, we have to remember, that's the governor's proposal.
Oh, okay.
We still have the House and the Senate that have to mull that over. And
All right, well, we'll just say that it's a possibility.
it's a possibility.
All right, next is a resolution to hold the millage election, and I'll let you speak to that.
All right, you have that in front of you. We're looking at placing on the ballot the operational millage renewal for May 7th of 2013. The millage levy will not go into effect until our current millage expires, which is in 2014. The reason that we're asking for the operational millage in May of this year is, quite frankly, if it should not pass, it gives us time to go out and ask again. Then the question becomes, why would we want to go out and ask again? And the answer to that is quite simply that if the 18 mil operating renewal did not pass and we didn't have those dollars, our instructional program would have to be cut so drastically that the school district would not exist really as a viable educational institution from that point forward. These 18 mills that we would be asking to renew, those are the 18 mills on non-homestead properties that we are allowed to levy to operate the district. If those things, again, if that was to not pass, it would be a catastrophe for the school district. So we're going to ask in May, if you approve this resolution, we'll ask in May, and if we don't get the word out and we don't generate the votes necessary to pass it, it gives us time to go out and educate the community more in the hopes that we could pass it when we ask again. I would be uncomfortable waiting until the last possible vote to ask, because if it didn't pass and we couldn't go out and ask again, it would be, like I said earlier, it would be a catastrophe to the district and to the students. So that's why I'm bringing it to you now for a May 7th, 2013 vote.
This is just a renewal.
This is just a renewal of the 18 mills that school districts are allowed to levy. It's not an increase, it's just a renewal of that millage. That's a good question.
I will make the motion, or I resolve that we pass this for May 7th of 2013.
All right,
The renewal of 18 mills.
all right, Kelly has resolved that we approve the resolution as presented to hold the election on May 7th of 2013 for the 18 mill renewal. Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, Eric seconds. Is there any further discussion?
Let me go ahead and read the operating millage renewal
Alright.
proposal before you
Okay,
vote.
alright.
It's all good. You folks don't have a copy of it, so let me read it to you. It says, this proposal will allow the school district to levy the statutory rate of 18 mills on all property except principal residence and other properties exempted by law, required for the school district to receive its revenue per pupil foundation allowance, and renews the millage that will expire with the 2013 tax levy. It goes on to say, shall the current authorized millage rate limitation of 18 mills, $18 on each $1,000 of taxable valuation, on the amount of taxes which may be assessed against all property, except principal residence and other property exempted by law in Gladwin Community Schools, Gladwin and Clare County, Michigan, be renewed for a period of 11 years from 2014 to 2024, inclusive to provide funds for operating purposes. The estimate of the revenue the school district will collect if the millage is approved and levied in 2014 is approximately $4,204,660. This is a renewal of a millage which will expire with the 2013 tax levy. Wow, that was a mouthful.
All right, we have resolved and we have a second. Although, Mr. Secretary, you have to do a roll call vote. Okay, will you take the roll call vote, please?
Lisa Schwager,
Yes.
Linda Winarski,
Yes.
Eric Dion,
Yes.
Kelly Gower,
Yes.
Trevor Gravel,
Yes.
Brad Withrow, yes, and Sally Hightower.
Yes. All right, the resolution passes. All right, next is the senior class trip. Who's presenting that? Mark?
Paul, do you want to go over that, or do you want me to take it away?
Take it away, Mr. Seaback.
You got it. You have the flyer put together by the senior class. I should have Carmen do this. They are ready to roll. They'd like us to give them permission to travel to Chicago for their senior trip. Any overnight stay by any of our groups has to be approved by the board. So that's what we'll be approving, is them to continue planning and raising money for, ultimately, their overnight trip on March 25th and 26th to Chicago.
I have a question. Where are you staying?
It really depends on the rates. That's something that we're
Okay,
looking at right now. It'd be somewhere close to the Magnificent Mile.
so close to North Michigan Avenue then. I grew up in Chicago.
Okay, well then I'll trust you.
Well, it looks like good, you'll have a good time at the Science and Industry Museum. That's a great place. Lots of buttons to push and things to do, so. Okay, questions for anyone? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve their trip to Chicago.
All right, Kelly moves that we approve the senior class trip as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Trevor seconds that we approve the senior class trip as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you're going on a trip.
Yay.
Congratulations. All right, Mr. Seebeck, we have coaching recommendations to present.
I do, and we'll take them each individually. The first one that Ruth Ann has put together for us is the head varsity boys track and field coach, and Ruth Ann is recommending that Tyler Ford be appointed to that position. You can see there that he's been working with Coach Shattuck, who has in the past been the head coach of the track team, and Tyler would like to take that over.
All right. We're gonna do each one of these, okay, then we'll move on.
Yep.
Each one.
One at a time.
All right. Is there a motion to approve Mr. Four as the head varsity boys track and field coach?
I'll make a motion to accept Mr.
All
Ford
right.
as the basketball coach.
Trevor has moved that
Or,
we
excuse me,
accept,
track coach.
okay, Mr. Four as the head varsity boys track coach. Is there a second? Second. All right, Lisa seconds. Is there any further discussion on this young man? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mr. Four passes.
All right, he'll be thrilled. The assistant varsity boys track and field coach, and within has recommended that we approve Elizabeth Wilford for that position. Many of you will remember Elizabeth. She's an athlete, or was an athlete here at Gladden Community Schools, and is now excited to return as a coach. She's the only track athlete that has placed first in the state meet, and she also holds our current pole vault record for the girls' track team.
Okay, I'll move that we approve Elizabeth Wilford as the assistant varsity boys track and field coach. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Eric seconds my motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Ms. Wilford is approved.
Which Wilford does she belong to?
She's Randy's daughter.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right, Michelle Altman. Michelle Zietz Altman, she's also a Gladwin grad and a former track athlete here. She was a sprinter for Kearney for 4 years. She's very energetic with an enthusiastic personality, and she is going to be a great addition to our track coaching staff without a doubt. So Dan is recommending as the assistant girls track and field coach, Michelle Altman.
I'll make a motion to accept her.
All right, well, let's not fight on it. Okay.
I don't care, Lisa, then. Long as it's done.
Eric has moved that we accept Michelle Altman as the assistant girls track and field coach. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Kelly seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Miss Altman or Mrs. Altman is approved. I was wondering why she was gonna do that. What's happened to her? Every time I saw her. Okay, next is the high-tech contract extension. Mr. Smith, you have lots of options to present to us.
I do. High-Tech Building Services has been providing our custodial services for the past 3 years, and it has gone extraordinarily well. In fact, if you look back there, you'll see Rhonda Smith, and Rhonda is the main reason that it has gone so well. Those of you that don't know Rhonda, she was a courier and a custodian with the district for many years, and when we made the decision to hire High Tech as our building cleaning service, we insisted that they employ Rhonda as the manager, and they were very agreeable to do that, and it has been really a marriage made in heaven since that's happened, although don't tell Ron I said that. The contract with High Tech. That's right, Tab's got me on tape. It's gone extraordinarily well. I really couldn't ask it to go any better, so when we sat down and looked at the expiration of their contract, and the decision then was, do we go out and try to rebid the entire service, or do we want to extend for 1 year the contract we have with High Tech with some changes in the fee structure to make it a little more attractive to the High Tech employees and a little more attractive to us as far as cost savings. I was agreeable to discuss that with them at that time. As a result, or from those discussions, we came up with 3 options. And I say we because I was talking with Kelly Schrager, the head salesperson for our area from High Tech. And option number 1, you'll see, includes raises for all of the High Tech employees who work for a year or more for the district. There's also some changes in the adjusted tax multiplier and some of their the benefits that are provided to those employees, and the hours that they're working would remain the same. To do that would cost us an additional $13,620 annually. Option 2 would include the same thing that option 1 does, except it would reduce the hours, and the reason that it would reduce them is we would go to a system where the classrooms themselves, not the common areas and restrooms and things like that, but just the classrooms, would be cleaned every other day in the junior high and the high school. It's a process that High Tech has been using in other districts around the state, and it's worked out very well. We haven't done it here, but in this option, we would. Along with that option, you should know that the administrators and I worked with High Tech to run an experiment over the course of the last 2 months where we did just that. We switched to the every other day classroom cleaning in the junior high and the high school. We ran it for 2 months just to see how it would go. And at the end of the 2-month period, we discovered that nobody really noticed. There were a few questions from teachers about their chalkboards. There are still 2 chalkboards in the district, very few, but there still are a few. The chalkboard hadn't been washed, or if there had been paper wads or something on the floor, or a broken pen on the floor, that it hadn't been cleaned up. So with the exception of just really a couple of cases, the experiment went off without a hitch. Option number 3 includes the raises, the adjusted multiplier, and goes with every other day classroom cleaning in the high school only. After the success of our experiment in the 2 secondary buildings, I would recommend that we choose option 2. And that will save the district $19,380 a year to do that, while at the same time providing for raises for the high-tech employees who have been working for that company for a year or more in our district. So it really is the best situation, sort of a win-win for everybody involved. And I think it will work out very well. I do know that in the 2 months we've done the experiment, it did work out very well. If it doesn't, we can always go back to option number 1 and implement classroom cleaning every day in those 2 buildings. So if we do discover more long-term.
Okay, so the elementary and the intermediate building would still be completely cleaned every day.
Yeah, yep, yeah, those 2 buildings need to be.
You guys would approve that, right? Marcine and Joe, you would want that every day? All right.
Short baby.
Rick, is there any cost if we make a change in the contract with them after we sign the contract with them? If we were to go from option 1 to option 2, let's say 6 months after we sign this contract, is there a fee that we have to pay?
No, there's no fee other than the cost will go up.
The cost would go up, but there's not a contractual
No,
change
there's no
fee
penalty or
or
anything like that.
penalties or?
No, the High Tech has been the easiest contract to manage of any that I have managed since I've been the superintendent. They work very well with us. We're very agreeable to most things, so.
I make the motion that we adopt the second choice of high-tech contract.
All right, Kelly has moved that we approve the second option of the proposed high-tech contract as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Trevor seconds that motion. Any further discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Option number 2, approved.
I'll bring an update to the board on how that's going in 3 or 4 months, just so that we can find out of it.
Okay, good.
Does that take over right away? Rick?
No,
No, it'll take over when the current contract expires, which is June.
yeah, but I will continue to do like I have been with the high school and the junior high, you know, and the principals let me know if I need to tweak anything, so.
What we've done, Trevor, is we took the every other day cleaning experiment. We didn't reduce anybody's hours. We just had them catching up on some things that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to get done. So they've been doing that. We're gonna continue to do that so that people get accustomed to the every other day.
Thanks for your hard work on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, is there anything under other?
None.
All right, then we stand adjourned at 8:19.
Tab, did you get my good side?
I did.